Nothing had worked out the way he'd hoped. He should have expected it by now, maybe. After all, things never had before. And yet he kept on pissing into the wind. He was like a man who's doored too low, but instead of working out how to duck, keeps on smacking his head into the lintel every day of his miserable life. He wanted to feel sorry for himself, but he knew he deserved no better. A man can't do the things that he'd done and hope for happy endings. What's up, bookworms? We are back today talking the conclusion of the First Law Trilogy in the final book of that series, The Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. If you missed my Let's Discuss series, the introduction for the First Law, I'll post a link to that at the end of this video. Also, I have spoiler reviews up for the first two books now, and I'll post those there as well. It'll be like the last 30 seconds. It'll flash them up on the screen for you. Also, I have a Let's Discuss for the Wheel of Time series. I'm going to be continuing that after I finish this. Just want to kind of get that out there in case any of you guys were just kind of hanging around to the end of the series. You want to say I am doing Wheel of Time also, and plenty of other, look behind me, there's plenty of other stuff that I'm going to be doing reviews for since these have been so warmly received. If you haven't read all three books in this trilogy, I'd recommend you go back now. The Let's Discuss sections are non-spoiler, but the book reviews themselves are just going to be full of spoilers, and I'm just going to kind of go through everything. So make sure you just kind of turn back now, bookmark this, come back for later after you finish. With that said, let's get into the final act here. First off, let me begin by saying, wow, this book takes so many threads that you're expecting to have the typical fantasy tropes that what you would have in your ending, and it just kind of turns them on their head. This is like if the original Star Wars trilogy had ended with The Empire Strikes Back. Just gut punch after gut punch. And that isn't to say it's unsatisfying or unfulfilling or anything like that. You get a complete story here. It just doesn't go the Disney ending way that most fantasy tales do. If you're expecting like an MCU ending here, you're not going to get it. Unlike last time, we don't get our heroes into three separate groups, making it easier for me to do this. We just kind of go all over the place. So I'll try to see how to put this into a coherent narrative, just going by my notes here. I'll start in Adua. Jezal has returned home. He does get with Artie. It's kind of weird at first, of course, but soon enough you can't keep them apart, and that seems to be going pretty well. Glocta even confronts, he's been asked by Wes to look out for Artie, so he even confronts her and says, marry her or else, and he tells her he plans to marry her. He's even planning on resigning his post in the military, and he's just going for it, man. He's just living in the moment. Whether he's lying to himself or not, it's not really clear. But, it seemed like they both realized that things had kind of changed, but they were going to go ahead and work it out anyway. And, once the clothes come off, they seem to just get along just fine. But then then the council tells them that they're going to promote him to colonel. And, he starts seeing glory and stuff like that. And he just starts to fall back into his old ways until they tell him, hey, we're going to send you out to end this peasant rebellion that's been escalating in the background since the first book. And I just want to throw in here there brilliant writing by Abercrombie, because if you blinked, you missed that this was going on. But in a reread, you can see that these things were planted in the first book, and it has a really good payoff. The thing you miss in this first read through is how much Baez has been hyping Jezal up as just badass. And see, ever since he cheated to help him win that contest, it's just been little thing. And I said in the before their hanged review that I saw why he had everyone he had on that expedition with him except for Jezal, and you get it. You get the payoff very early in this book. This is when you find out that Yoru Sulfur is one of Baez's assistants. I think he's in the Order of the Magi, but he's not one of the first 12. But he's been the one fanning the flames of this rebellion, and thus makes it look like Jezal is able to end this conflict without any bloodshed and just shrewd negotiation. And what's the payoff for this? Baez manipulates the Open Council and the people to elect Jezal as the new king of the Union after he reveals that he is the bastard son of King Guzlov and he has the best claim to the throne. So it's just a bit of masterwork by Baez and Joe Abercrombie here. It's just been building since book one. You can miss these things easily. Now that you know what to look for, you see it, and you're like, that's very well done. Again, just a stroke of brilliance by Abercrombie. And an angle I didn't see coming the first time I went through this. And again, it just total surprise, wonderful payoff. And everybody wants to talk about Game of Thrones these days. I don't think that I remember anything quite that crazy in Game of Thrones. It's really, really well done. Up north, we get the resolution of the battle with Bethad and find out that Logan isn't quite the budding hero we've been led to believe. Some people saw it that way, others didn't. Bethad tells him that the Bloody Nine is the reason Bethad is what he is, and the only reason he left him alive is because Baez requested it. Logan refuses, of course, to believe it, and he challenges them to end the war in a duel in the Circle with Fenris the Feared. We get like 3 or 4 points of view during this fight, but I mean, it's amazing stuff, and it is worth the hype they built through 3 books about Logan's duels. He'd won 10 of them. And also how much of a badass Fenris is. I mean, Darth Vader type, you barely saw him. And then when he shows up, you're like, okay, yeah, all this stuff is really, I mean, every time he shows up, first time he shows up, he's like stabbing stuff through his arms, like, look, it ain't hurting me at all. Next time he shows up, he kills 3 trees. And now this time he shows up, and if it wasn't for Dogman and Black Dow being able to take out Bethad's witch, Karib, I believe her name was, even the Bloody Nine couldn't beat Fenris. So, I mean, it was an intense sequence. It's satisfying as hell. And even though Logan then killing Bethad and Crummock doing his best Baez impression and declaring Logan the new king of the Northmen, Logan doesn't want it. He doesn't want it, but, we don't always get what we want. I'm pretty sure Jezal doesn't want to be king at this point, but you don't really get... Seems like in this thing, you don't get to make that decision. You can't just abdicate as easily as you could in like a Game of Thrones or something like that. So 2 new kings in the first half of this book. So, it's not an accident that is the name of this book, the Last Argument of Kings. The bad news is for King Jezal that the Gurkish have now started to invade Adwa, while the majority of the army is still up north with West. They try to withstand a siege. They're waiting for West to return with the army, and all the while Glokta is just still in this tight spot with Valiant and Balk. Valiant. I always want to say Valiant. Valiant and Balk. They seem to just like know everything that Glokta is doing. It's almost like Batman here. They just know everything he's going to do before he does it. So he starts to presume, okay, I tell everything to like one person. Who is the one person I tell everything? My practicals. Okay, so he assumes Severard has betrayed him, and he takes him to that house that Severard had purchased in the first book and starts to torture him. And it's just brutal stuff. All the torture scenes are just so well done and intense. And this one, because as soon as he takes the blindfold off Severard, he starts screaming. He knows what's coming. He's been on the other end of this for years. He understands what's about to happen, and he just tries to tell him everything. But it's a really sad sequence, because we discover that both him and Frost have betrayed him. And pretty much the only 2 dudes that Glokta could maybe call friends this whole time have both turned their back on him, and now they're both dead. It's just, I guess him and Glokta already have kind of become rather close since West asked him to look after her, and he's obviously rekindled that friendship with West. But still, these are the 2 guys he's been the closest with while he's been going through his miserable lot in life. But he decides it's time to arrest the Arch-Lector. I'm just kind of skipping ahead here. And he hires Nekomo Casca. Again, this guy keeps popping up. And like I said, someone's already told me he shows up in 1, maybe 2 of the standalones. So that's great. I could always take more of him. I love that he can't do anything with a knife. And then the one time he finally gets it, it actually counts. Nice little reward there. But he also discovers that High Justice Morovia has presumably been murdered, since he finds his body parts like all over his quarters when he goes to speak with him. And as readers, we've already seen that. Wait, Morovia's with the Kingsguard and Jezal. They're during the siege. What's going on? But we did get a few hints of it, that it's an imposter by it, because it keeps pointing out that Morovia's eyes are 2 different colors, and of course it is revealed to be Yoru later. This guy's everywhere, man. Finally, Khalul's eaters that we've been hearing about for 2 books, they show up. and Baez decides it's time to retrieve his Deus Ex Machina. At least that's what I thought it was going to be, from the House of the Maker. And this is where things just really go bananas. If you thought it was crazy before, this is like the game-changing chapter in this whole series, because everything's different after this. Pharaoh follows Baez and Yulwei and Kwai. The three of them, they try to go to the House of the Maker to get this weapon or whatever. But that's when we learn that Kwai has been dead since, I believe, book 1 or early on in the second. I'm trying to remember when it happened. I read these so quick. Turns out the Kwai was the body that Galacta had found earlier, and I can't remember the Inquisitor that his rival starts with a G. I always want to say Gorse, but I know that's Brimmerdan Gorse. I don't know. Goyle. Is it Goyle? It might be Goyle. Or am I thinking Crabbe and Goyle from Harry Potter? I don't know. A book with these many characters, plus reading Wheel of Time at the same time, you're gonna get some character names mixed up. It's fine. But he told him that, it was just dogs. Leave it alone. And leave it alone. It turned out that was Kwai this whole time. That's a little twist. So, so who's been taking his place and acting like him the entire time this is going on, through the whole Fellowship of the Seed and all that? None other than Ptolemy, Baez's former lover and the daughter of the Maker. You get all kinds of reveals that maybe you never really get a straight answer from Baez, that he was the one who killed Juvens, and that he also threw Ptolemy off this bridge, not Canadius. So it's just bananas, man. It's just going crazy. But she's kind of like a wraith now, I guess, or something like that. I didn't really get the full grasp of it. But, she's dead, but she can never actually die. But she's been locked in this tower the whole time. And he has Pharaoh grab the seed, which we figure out that the seed's been in this house, the House of the Maker, this whole time. He has Pharaoh grab the seed. They go to get out of here, but they just ditch Yulwei. Yulwei's fighting Ptolemy, and they just lock him in there, leave him to his death. I personally, I didn't like that. I really liked Yulwei quite a bit. I guess that's kind of what he's going for, is just daggers like that. Not everybody's going to get their moment of glory to go out on, or something like that, or they're fitting in. Sometimes people just die, and I've always said in fantasy and sci-fi, if you don't see a body, then they're not dead. But I think if we do end up seeing Yulwei again in standalones or in the sequel trilogy, he might be like Ptolemy next time we see him. So it might not be such a happy reunion if we do see Yulwei again. So Baez then proceeds to use the power of the seed to wipe out the Eaters, but he ends up wiping out most of Adua with it. So it's like, we won, but did we really? During the time it took Pharaoh, after this battle, to get the seed back to that metal box that they got in the first book, there's a few people that come into contact with it, and many soldiers and civilians, basically, they start to die. Off of something, I guess it's kind of similar to radiation sickness. They start to get sick, and their hair starts falling out, and then they just kind of waste away within a couple of days. And this gets a lot of people, including our friend Lord Marshall West. That was tough to read, man. It was tough to read. Pharaoh's all messed up now. She's hearing these voices, and Logan even tries to come and reconcile with her and say what he couldn't say before. And he can't even get her attention because she's like, shh, listen to these voices. Do you hear them and stuff? And he just concludes that the feelings were all one-sided and decides, I'm just going to go back home up north. That night, Pharaoh's attacked by Mamoon. I actually thought Mamoon was actually killed in that battle, but she ends up killing him rather easily. Apparently, she's got like these newfound powers from using this seed, and she decides she's off to kill the Emperor of Gurkel, just like she was earlier. And she's gone. She's gone. We don't see her again. Now this is where we get all of our answers. We've had so many chapters in these books called questions that were all Galactic Chapter. This one's called answers. We get a lot of our answers here. And we find out that Baez wasn't just behind getting Jezal on the throne. He was behind everything. And I mean everything. This guy was the puppet master the whole time. It turns out that he is Valant and Balk. He pretty much tells Jezal that he's going to be the one running the kingdom from now on, with Jezal just a king in name only. He really fucks that guy up. And it's just a major slap in the face, because Baez is revealed to just be like this monster, but he wins, man. He pretty much wins this thing. It's crazy. It is not how you expect this to end at all. You keep saying, okay, so what's going to happen? How are they going to get him? They don't. He wins, man. It's nuts. Glocta's about the only one who has a happy ending here. The closed council, they know Artie's pregnant with Gisele's bastard child, and they ask Glocta to take care of it, meaning kill her. And being appointed the new Archlector by Baez, he offers to marry Artie just to protect her and raise a child of his own. She accepts, but she actually cares for him, and she takes care of him, and she doesn't just look at him like this repulsive monster. She actually shows him affection. She actually cares for him. It's quite nice, actually, in a book where not a lot of nice things happen for these people. It's quite nice, and his goodbye scene with West is very emotional, very well done. Even the reveal of Pike being Salem Ruse, it kind of made his arc seem like it came full circle, as it appears Archlector Glocta now has a new head practical as they start to torture Archlector Sult. So I kind of wish I'd gotten to see that, because I wanted to see Sult get his, and especially since Baez isn't getting his, I wanted to see Sult really get his. But, leave some things to your imagination. Giselle does talk to Glocta about, they got to do something about Baez. And Glocta suggests, he agrees, but they're going to have to play the long game on this one. And since the sequel trilogy is taking place, I believe, 28 years later, it's a really long game. But if anybody can be patient and wait this out, I think it is Glocta. Lastly, Logan. He has Dogman stay in Adwa kind of as a garrison. And it isn't a happy parting. He's already broken up about Harding Grim dying. That was rough, man. And I just never thought that I would end up caring about these Northmen the way I did. And that's just a credit to Abercrombie's writing. These characters that never got a POV chapter, and you really got to feel like it was a brotherhood, and seeing them all slowly die over the course of this trilogy. Besides Dogman, it was rough. It really is rough just seeing it all happen again. And he also says that he knows that Logan killed Tull when he was a Bloody Nine, and he almost killed him. When he was Bloody Nine, he was coming after him before a piece of shrapnel separated him. So it's not a very good parting, and I don't really know where Dogman goes after this. I'll get into that in my character analysis at the end here. But the reception back north is about the same for Logan, as dumbest decision he made this whole book was leaving Black Dow in charge to take care of Bethod's kids, while he was gone. And I don't know how he thought that would end any differently than it does. Now Black Dow has partnered up with Bethod's two kids to take on Logan, rather to take Logan out, rather. And instead of being killed by them, he decides to take a chance at survival by jumping off a cliff into the water below. And the book ends pretty much how the first chapter ends, except it's unclear whether Logan survived. Wow, that's dark. This is why I think Joe Abercrombie goes by Lord Grimdark on Twitter, because he owns that. The happiest ending is a character who's basically a puppet for the villain and married to a drunk with a kid that ain't his. That's something. Let's get into characters and what I liked and didn't like for each. Logan. As much as Abercrombie tried to make me dislike him in this book, I just couldn't. I still could not. I wasn't happy when he killed Tull, and he killed Crummick's young son. That was awful. And the revelation that he basically made Bethod, it was a holy shit moment, but I was still rooting for him up until the end. And I know none of these characters are in the standalones, at least not as POV characters, but I do hope we at least get like a mention of his ultimate fate, because right now I got that real Sopranos cut the black feeling, and I need to know. I'm guessing he lives because he's lived through worse in these books. So I don't know if we see him again, and I don't want to know. So don't tell me. Please don't tell me in the comments, because I'm hoping he shows up or at least gets like a mention in these standalones, or who knows, maybe he's in this sequel trilogy as a very old man. We'll see. Glocta, no matter what this character does, no matter how detestable, no matter how disgusting, manipulative, evil, I still love him. Just an incredibly layered character that has learned how to live with being miserable and in pain, and now he's got a grasp with how to allow himself maybe to be happy again. I mean, he's basically in charge, only answers to Baez, and he's married to a woman who cares for him. I can't wait to hear how he's done by the time the sequel trilogy rolls around, because as I believe his daughter, or Giselle's daughter, I guess. Depends on how you look at it there. I believe she is a big character in the sequel trilogy. So lots and lots of interest for that. With Pharaoh, I feel like if there's a character out of our 6 POV characters that didn't get enough development, it's her. She basically ends this story right back where she began, which is just looking for revenge on the Gurkish Emperor. Like saying with Logan, I hope we hear something. Do we have a new emperor by the time the sequel trilogy rolls around? And do we have that because she ended them? That would be nice to hear, even if we don't see her again. She did play a very important part in this. Obviously, as far as I am led to believe, Baez still can't use this seed again without her. So I don't think we've seen the end of this. With West, man, I hated how he went out. I had a feeling 1 or 2 or half or 5/6 of our POV characters were going to go out. They were going to die. But man, he lives through like unwinnable situations all the time, both in Angland and in the Battle of Adwa, and he ends up dying of, let's call it, seed sickness. It's a real punch in the nuts, man. It's a shame. I did like that he made things right with Artie before he went, and her saying, I forgave you the first time I thought you were dead. And the goodbye he has with Glokta before he goes, that was really fitting, and I enjoyed that. It's real emotional stuff. But it does suck that Giselle won't even have that one ally on the closed council, that he needs, and he won't even get that now. So no happy endings there for sure. With Dogman, I think the last two books have been nothing but about loss for him. He's lost 3 trees: Toll, Cathal, Harding, and now presumably Logan. Dude is left all alone in Adua where he basically knows no one. Black Dow's about the only one he knows that isn't dead, and I'm going to assume Black Dow's put himself on the throne now, unless one of Bethod's kids have challenged him for it. If any of these 6 characters could show back up in the standalones, I think it could be Dogman, because he's the one with the most open-ended story here without any real resolution or future plans. So I doubt he's just going to stand around in Adwa, as a garrison for the North when it's like a king who didn't even put him there. We'll see. For all I know, Black Dow wants him to come back so he can go ahead and cut him off too, because Black Dow's Black Dow. Black Dow's crazy. Hope I see more of him. Giselle, this is a case of be careful what you ask for. Because everyone assumes it's going to be a life of luxury, to rule, and to be so great to be royalty, but getting there and realizing you're just a puppet that is married to one of the worst women the universe has ever produced, all while being beaten down by Baez, is just the worst. It's just the worst. Having to answer to Glokta at the end, too. I can't imagine a worse ending for this guy. Glokta marries the woman that he loved. Rough go with it, man. He clearly has the biggest character arc. I won't say best, but he has the biggest character arc in this series. And like many of the others, it's just tough to see it end this way for him. Overall, guys, this trilogy is wonderful. Every time you think you know where it's going, Abercrombie just hits you with a surprise left. But the ending is just an all-timer. Man, I've seen many series that have just had dark endings that have just been bad. Looking at you, Stephen King's Dark Tower. Vested so many years into that, and that's what you gave me? Well, that's a podcast for another time. But this is written so well. And even if you feel unsatisfied, you can't say it isn't fulfilling. I read this the first time in 2009, and the ending bothered me so much, and I was so mad, that I didn't read the standalones when they came out, because I learned that they weren't going to be about Baez getting his comeuppance. Obviously, things have changed a lot since then. In 10 years, your reading taste can change, your opinions, the way you like storytelling can change. And where I'm at in my life now, I'm older, I've learned to enjoy these types of stories, and I want to read these standalones before A Little Hatred hits this fall. And I'm excited to, because over on the Reddit page for the First Law, everyone's been just like really awesome about these reviews. And they encouraged me to read the standalones. I made a post over there before I even decided to reread these. Do I need to read the standalones before the sequel trilogy comes out? And they're all like, you don't need to, but you should want to. I mean, there's people who've told me that they like the Heroes or Best Served Cold better than anything in the original trilogy, so that has me excited. And I'm also going to throw Sharp Ends in there because it's a chance for me to see some of these characters again. Even if it's just a short story collection. I know a lot of people don't go for that, but being a massive Stephen King fan, I'm all about the short story collections, man. I love it. But those aren't next, however. I am beginning phase 2 of my Wheel of Time first time read through, which will be books 5 through 8. I'm considering slipping Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson in there too, because I love the Stormlight Archive, but I never read book 3 because I read the first 2 books, which are just tomes. I read them like back to back, and I was just like burned out, and I needed a break. But I'm back on Abercrombie well before the release of A Little Hatred. And I have every intention of reading that, A Little Hatred, the week of release and getting a review up for it ASAP. So you ain't got to worry about me not catching up in time and being delayed. The first law was so good on a reread that while I'm not dreading going back to Wheel of Time, because I'm really enjoying that, I will admit it was rather difficult to not say, the hell of that. I'm just going to keep reading these first law books because they just read them all straight through. But at least this way, the wait will be shorter by the time I finish Red Country and have to wait for the release of A Little Hatred. So thank you guys for watching. I have had so many people comment here or on Reddit or on Twitter that tell me how much they've enjoyed the reviews and how my Let's Discuss episode got them to give these books a try and how they're really, really enjoying them. And that's the whole reason I do this. I can talk about books all day, and if even one person listens and decides to try that book, man, I mean, I've done my job. That's what I'm here to talk about. So thanks again for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel. Young channel, trying to get things going here, and the more subscribers, the more I'll actually show up when people do searches for these things. And please, if there's anything you'd like me to see me review in the future that I haven't heard me talk about yet, I do have plans to do the Witcher books also before the Netflix series comes out. But if there's anything that you can think of, doesn't have to be fantasy, it can be anything. I'm a huge Stephen King fan, obviously. I do a ton of the Stephen King stuff. And I haven't actually done any reviews for his stuff yet. Dune by Frank Herbert is like my favorite book. So if you'd like to hear me do something about that, hey, just hit me up. Anything that you think that I would enjoy reading and you would enjoy hearing me talk about, please let me know in the comments. And because, guys, if you don't, then Baez wins.